Okay, here we go. So as you know, I'm Scott, and I work at Nagoya Gakuin University. So let's talk about grit. So I've got two stories first. So these are actually two of my long friends. So from Nagoya, Alex and Jeff, and they're both wonderful people, but they're also very different. So first, this is Alex. This isn't him, don't worry. This isn't his picture, but it does look kind of like him. So Alex is kind of an ideas person. He's got always got loads and loads of great business ideas. Every time I talk with him, he's like, hey, I want to do this thing. What do you think about it? Yeah. And I always think like, wow, it sounds amazing. You should do it. But somehow he never seems to follow through with any of these ideas. So he's had all these amazing ideas, but nothing's really happened. And in fact, his career is kind of stalled, really. And in the end, he went back home to his home country. And as far as I know, he's living in his parents' house. So he's a very smart guy, but it's with these loads of amazing ideas, but it's not quite working out. And then there's my other friend, Jeff. This doesn't look like him at all, but he is bald. So Jeff is one of those people who, when he decides to do something, he just goes for it. He's just 100% into whatever it is. You might even describe him as a workaholic almost, but it's worked amazingly for him. He's he saved up a lot of money. Then he bought a school, an English teaching school. Then he put all of his effort and all of his money into making that school the best school it could be, and continued to make more and more and more money. Eventually sold the school, and then he moved on to his next business venture, which was a kind of online teaching management system. And again, it just spends a vast amount of time, just always thinking about it, always doing it, and doing really, really well. So what is it that's causing this massive difference in these two guys' lives? Well, it could be any number of things, but my intuition is that it probably comes down to grit. Jeff, he decides to do something and he sees it through to the end, no matter what. Alex gets a good idea, starts to do it, forgets about it, and does the next thing. So according to Amanda Duckworth, who's kind of the number one person in this area, so she says that grit is actually a combination of two things: perseverance on one hand and passion on the other hand. So passion, I think it's obvious what we mean. It's like you really, really want to do something. And then perseverance is that kind of ability to stay on track with that thing and to ignore other things and just keep focusing on whatever it is that needs to be done, even if in the moment it's not a very fun thing to do. So there's lots of research on the effect of grittiness on people's lives, and it's very interesting. So people with higher grit levels tend to experience greater satisfaction long term. They tend to be less depressed. They tend to be more successful in their careers. They tend to be more successful at school. And they also, crucially for us, tend to be better teachers. Now, I don't want to overstate the differences here. Where differences have been measured, it tends to be a difference of about 5% between gritty people and non-gritty people. But, a 5% increase in all the important areas of your life is not to be sniffed at. So, got some ideas next for a combination of things that we can do for ourselves and also things we can do for our students to help them to become grittier people. So the first things I'll talk about are framing. So framing is basically the way you view things. So if you have this situation, maybe you could view it in one way, you could view it in another way, maybe positive, maybe negative, maybe short-term, maybe long-term. So that's what I mean by framing. It's your viewpoint on something. So the first thing is if we're praising someone for something or praising ourselves, we should always praise effort and not accomplishments. So instead of saying, wow, you're so smart, when somebody does something, what we should really say is, wow, you must have worked really hard for that. So the key difference there is that saying, wow, you're so smart means that your success is just an inherent inbuilt ability that you have. Mm-hmm. Whereas saying that you worked really hard is showing that it's not necessarily to do with your ability, it's to do with the effort you put in, the sustained effort. So by doing that, we're praising someone's approach to things rather than some kind of inherent ability that we think they might have. And that has a real effect on the people themselves. Like actually being told that you're smart tends to have a negative effect on people and tends to increase their fear of failure, so that they tend to become avoidant of difficult things. Whereas praising people for working hard for things tends to have the opposite effect. They feel that working hard itself is the good thing, so they don't tend to fear failure so much. And then kind of following on from that, we should see failure as a learning opportunity. So again, instead of saying, oh, I failed the test, I suck at math, or you failed the test, you suck at math, what we should be saying is, I failed the test, so I'm going to work on my trigonometry because that was my weak point in the test. So I want to fix that weak point. So what we're really getting at here is the difference between the mindset on the left side of I failed because my ability isn't enough, versus on the right side, I failed because there was something lacking, but I can make that thing up in the future. That's the key difference. So it's this kind of positive view on the ability to grow. So next, I'll talk about some classroom activities. So this will be 3 activities, one aimed at perseverance, one aimed at passion, and one aimed at the growth mindset. Mm-hmm. And they're all things that I've done or I'm currently doing with my students. So my class that I teach at the minute, it's a 90-minute conversation class. It focuses on conversation strategies for first-year university students. So, but the level's not super high. It's kind of lower level university students. So probably is appropriate for high school too. And if you're interested, I can share you one of the documents that I use with my students too at the end.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so first one, perseverance, making personal lesson goals. So again, although these are classroom activities, they're things that are really good for us to do as well. So firstly, just thinking about long-term. So we need not just short-term goals, we need long-term goals as well. They should kind of mesh together. So with the long-term goal, at the beginning of the semester, I say to students, what do you want to learn? Like, how do you want to change? What's the difference between you now and you at the end of the semester? Set yourself a goal. And then when we come to the end of semester or the end of the year, we can go back and review that goal and say, oh, how have I changed? Why? What do I need to do next? That kind of thing. So we're getting it also into that kind of like growth mindset. And then on a maybe a weekly schedule, I usually have them in class do this. So I ask them at the beginning of class, what's one thing you want to improve or learn today? And that might not necessarily be connected with the classroom goals. That might be like a personal thing, like, maybe a student is a little bit shy and they want to talk with 2 or 3 people today or something like that. So there are lots of different things that you can go for. So then at the end of the class, similar style to the long-term goals, were you able to complete your goal? Why not? How do you feel about it? Do you have any thoughts about what you want to do next time? Things like that. So these weekly goals eventually, in theory, should help to complete that long-term goal, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, sometimes they might have the different things that they also want to look at. It doesn't have to be that everything goes into the long-term goal. And of course, we can do the same thing with ourselves, what's my teaching goal this week? What's my teaching goal over the course of this year? What do I want to improve about my teaching? So the next one is more kind of a passion-centered activity. So this is probably my favorite of the activities because it has such a strong effect sometimes. So again, at the beginning of the semester, I have this discussion question, which I usually ask them to talk about for 5 minutes in pairs, either in their native language or their second language, depends on their level. So the question is this: imagine yourself usually 10 years in the future, maybe more. So this future version of you, how has it benefited you to speak English? And then they talk about that, they share their ideas. I can walk around the classroom and, maybe give some input. Maybe they'll give me some really interesting ideas that I can share with the rest of the class. And this sometimes has like really amazing, profound impacts on the students. Like there was one student I had who, he had that kind of face of like, I don't want to be here. I just have to study English because it's part of the course program. So I went over to him and I asked him like, so how about you? How's it going to benefit you? And he said, actually, my father owns a trucking company, and I'm going to take it over. And it's Japanese, so yeah, to be honest, it's not going to benefit me. I don't care. And I thought, oh, okay, interesting. So then I talked to him a little bit. Well, there are cognitive benefits to speaking a second language. It tends to make you a little bit smarter, a bit more intelligent. And also, what if you want to bring on foreign workers, like is happening with a lot of companies now? You might need to speak English with them. What if you want to move your company to an international company? Again, like it's going to super benefit you speaking English. And he was like, yeah, that's an interesting point. And then like when he came back the next week, he was like a totally different student. And he ended up being like one of the best students in that year group. And whether it all came from this, I don't know, but it certainly seemed to change his outlook on it. And actually, I have a version of this that, if you'd like to do it, it's the one that we can do. So it's a more kind of I don't want to say self-centered, that's the wrong word, but it's a kind of a more personal one that we can do with ourselves to try and like focus on our own goals. So could I ask you to close your eyes for a moment? Okay. And then please imagine that you're lying on your deathbed. It's your last day on earth, but you're totally satisfied with the life that you had. So I want you to just kind of picture that situation. So you're just lying in your bed. It's kind of your final days. So you're so happy to be surrounded by these people that are with you. Just think about, who are these people that are with you at this time? What do they look like? What are their names? How are they connected with you? And also, you feel so proud about your life and the things that you've done. What are those things that you've done? Just think about it. So personally, I find this to be incredibly powerful. And it really, in times when I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, or even times when I am sure, but I want to really think about it, like this way of looking, like long-term looking at my life, I find it to be incredibly powerful, really useful. I think it's changed my life in some ways. Oh, hang on, I see we have a chat.
Sorry?
Okay, no problem. So how was it for you?
It's very, very special. Yes.
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
I won't ask you what you saw. I think it's kind of personal. So to continue, final activity is kind of trying to think specifically about this growth mindset. So this is a self-analysis activity. So as I said, with my classes I do, it's mostly conversation focused. So I have a conversation focused self-analysis activity.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it works is every week, students record their conversations that they have with each other in English. And then halfway through the semester, and then again near the end of the semester, we use these conversations to like self-analyze and create new goals for ourselves. So what we usually do is transcribe just 1 or 2 minutes from one of the conversations. I find 2 is better if there's enough time. And then because my class, we focus on conversation strategies, I have the students look at their conversation and self-analyze what strategies they are actually been using in the conversation. And then think about, what were the positives, what were the negatives, were there any strategies that they felt they were using really well that maybe they were surprised about? Were there any that they found they weren't using that maybe they thought they should be? And then they can kind of like remake that conversation and redo the conversation, talk about how they feel, and especially they can focus on what they need to improve on rather than just having a general class goal. They can then have their personal specific goals that they want to improve, so they can take more ownership over the learning process. And that is it, I think. Yeah, it was in time. So, oh, thanks for your email, by the way. So I will just, I will share that, the worksheet I usually use with them.
Okay.
Yeah, so looks like that. Oh, hello. Cannot be sent because it is currently in, okay. Let's see. Got to open in a window somewhere. One more time. Oh, there you go. So it's in the chat if you want to take a look.
Yes, I'll.
A lot of it is in Japanese, so maybe I should explain something. So if I share the screen, share. Here we go. Here it is. Okay. Can you see that okay?
I can see this. I was looking for your chat. 1 minute. Okay. Yes. The document in Japanese, or where they've transcribed their conversation, is it?
Yeah. So I have the instructions in Japanese, so maybe it's useful if I explain it a little bit. So
okay.
What they have is they have their names on the left side. The conversation itself goes in the middle, and they write. They also include things like the amount of time they stopped and any time that they didn't use English. And then on the right side, they make a note of the skills that they used. And then they go to the self-review section, which is first they show it to a friend and they get the friend to give them some advice and share some impressions. Then they go down and they count each skill and they write what they thought, like, oh, this skill I was able to use. This one I kind of did, but I used it kind of wrong maybe. Or this one I used a lot, but I always use the same phrase. Maybe I need to use some different phrases next time, that kind of thing. Then they have a chance to remake that conversation and then they can record it. And then finally at the bottom, they can set themselves a new goal for the rest of the semester, maybe for the next semester.
This is interesting.
Okay, Deepa. So I'd like to hear, maybe you have some experiences with, you know, some kind of similar stuff. I'd love to hear it.
I could connect with what you mentioned at the very start, you know, about asking how students felt. I have a foundation, so we had a storytelling summer camp for students. And we were very excited, me and my volunteers, and it was 15 days residential. And day one, the children were looking happy. They were completely uninvolved. And when we asked them, they said, I didn't want to learn stories. I don't want to learn English. I'm too scared. And I want to go home. It's my summer break. I don't want to sit here in this camp. So we just whatever activities we had for them, and we gave them all drawing books and colors and said, okay, if you could be wherever you want to be now, if you could do whatever you want to do right now, what would it be? Draw. So yeah. So they just sat and drew it, and then they spoke about it, and then they could go all around the room and share it with whomever they wanted. Which friend do you want to talk about your drawing to? Go ahead. Who wants to come on the stage and then tell the rest? So that entire one, yeah.
So in the end, they were telling stories.
Sorry?
So they were telling stories.
Yes, yes. Yes. And yes, we realized, you know, when you mentioned one of the things, so how has it impacted you? How are you feeling? We began with that rather than, you know, just jump into what we wanted to teach them. It was very helpful. It was very helpful doing that. So I got reminded of that. And I really liked the last activity, the one that you shared me with, you know, I know there's lots of it in Japanese, but systematizing something in such a simple manner so that one can self-evaluate and you have a little framework and tools for that. I think that's very impressive. I liked that a lot.
And we can do it too, right? You can use the same thing to, you know, analyze your own teacher talk in the classroom.
Correct. That would be much deeply revealing.
Yeah.
Yes. So would it be possible to share that with me, your framework, that little column that you created?
Yeah, I think it should be in the chat. You should be able to download it from the chat.
Oh, from the chat, is it?
Yeah. Can you see it?
From my phone, and it's I'm not able to that easily.
I can email it to you.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have my ID? Should I share it here again?
Yeah, I just got it, so
okay,
should be fine.
Cool. What grade students do you work with, Scott?
I work with university first years.
Okay.
So, you know, although for university students, they're very low level. A lot of them failed English at school. So I think it probably works fine with kind of high, with probably like over teenagers should be fine, but younger than that, I think it would need changing. It would need simplifying.
Yeah. Lovely to know. Thank you for sharing the email. Thank you for this presentation.
Thank you for watching.
Are you actually doing this that thing with really young students with